We have been saying that Spirituality 101 is basically this. There is a God, and it's not you, and it's not me. God is God precisely because he is completely self-sufficient in himself. He doesn't need anything, but we do. We have needs that we must attend to if we're going to thrive and survive. In fact, the whole of our being, by its very nature, is a vast collection of neediness. Just think about it. Physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. We're needy. This reality is something that we often deny to our own detriment. Our neediness should not be a cause for embarrassment or even inconvenience. God created us with needs on purpose, and he passes on the responsibility of tending to those needs. Sometimes it can feel selfish to prioritize our needs, but that's just common sense. You can't possibly help somebody else unless you've taken care of yourself. Caring for yourself first can and should be preparation for service to others. When we deny even a single one of our legitimate needs, we are not moving towards health. In fact, we're moving away from it. So we're taking this whole season of Lent to take a closer look at just how needy we are, how to best meet those needs, and as a result, how to be healthier. Now, we've talked about some of the temptations that we face when it comes to our needs. We said that the first temptation is meeting legitimate needs in an illegitimate way. So, we will be tempted from time to time to do something we know is wrong in order to meet a real need. So let's just say, for example, that you're running late for work, which you need to get to make a living, and so you break the speed limit, or you even run a few red lights. Second temptation, meeting legitimate needs by taking a shortcut. With our needs, we are often tempted to settle for what is just a shadow of the real and legitimate need that we all experience. We are tempted to take the easy way out or to go for the shortcut. So let's say you found yourself really, really tired lately, and so you start skipping the gym and sleeping in instead. Third temptation is meeting our needs by worshiping them. We turn our needs into gods, make them the whole of our life. We give them all of our attention, our affection, and our ability. We pursue them at any and all costs. This is like the guy who arranges every weekend of the winter around hockey, and all of his disposable income and all of his free time is directed to that, when it could be directed to his family. Today, we're going to talk about two needs that go together. We are meant to live in rhythm between one and then the other. Life is a constant switching back and forth between these two. To learn more about these needs, we're going to look at a passage from the book of Exodus where God gives the 10 Commandments. Now don't worry, we aren't going to do an in-depth look at all 10 of them. We're just going to look at one of them for today. Friends, it is very, very important to note that God does not give the 10 Commandments as a condition for a relationship, but in the context of the relationship. It's very important to know that. God does not give the 10 Commandments as a condition for the relationship, but in the context of the relationship. God didn't say, you do these 10 things, and then we'll talk. God delivers the commandments only after he has demonstrated his power by parting the Red Sea and rescuing them from slavery. He delivers the commandments only after he has blessed them abundantly in every way. Only then does he give them the commandments. The commandments, in turn, reveal God's priorities. They show that God is not only powerful, but he is good. God gives the 10 Commandments for more successful living. They are necessary elements of living a good life. Now, the command that we're looking at today is the third command, which goes like this, and we read it this morning. Remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. Now, the commandment goes on to explain, for 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, but rested on the seventh day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and consecrated it. See, God works for 6 days. He creates the heavens and the earth and everything in it. Then he creates the crown of creation, us, human beings, who bear his image and likeness. Then, after all of the work of creation, God rests. Why? Why do you think he rests? You think he's worn out? You think he's tired? God doesn't get tired. He's God. It's not possible. God rests to set the pace and the pattern for how he wants us to live, the proper rhythm in which we function best. So let's take a closer look at this rhythm. So God begins with work, right? At one point there was no creation, and then God decided to get to work and create something, not because he was bored and had nothing better to do, but out of the expansiveness of his love and his grace. And since you and I, we are made in his image and likeness, well, then we also are to work, right? Notice that the commandment says this: 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. So the commandment assumes an inclination towards work, as if it's something that we will naturally desire, right? Work is not a curse or a punishment as a result of sin. Work is part of the plan, written into the very act of creation. And it's actually carved in our souls, because we're made in the image and likeness of God. We not only need the produce and the profit of our work, but we need the process as well. So it is important, friends, that we view work in the right way. Now, there are basically 3 different ways that we can look at our work. The first one is to see our work as a job. Okay? Now, a job looks at work as something to pay the bills and to supply our basic needs. And of course, a job does do that. But when that's all it does, it's not very satisfying, is it? Another way to look at work is as a career. So this is moving up the ladder and making a name for yourself. This attitude towards work might pamper and even please our ego, which is all perfectly fine and legitimate. There is nothing wrong with trying to make a name for yourself and get ahead. Nothing wrong with that. We find ourselves doing that all the time. Except at the end of the day, it might not wholly satisfy our soul. Okay, so you worked hard, you got the big name, you got the fancy office at the end of the hall with all the windows. But are you more satisfied? Not always, right? It doesn't wholly satisfy the soul. You're still longing for something more. The other way to look at work is as a vocation. So, people who see their work as a calling see a meaning and a purpose beyond themselves. They recognize the real gifts that they have, and they put them in the service of the greater good, or to a higher purpose. That kind of work can be soul satisfying. And ultimately, if we find it, it's given to us by God. We need God to have soul satisfying work. But that's only part of the plan. Okay? Work is matched with rest. Rest also gives you the opportunity to enjoy the blessings that God provides. Once again, God sets this example in creation itself. The book of Genesis, the first book of the Bible, tells us that after God created everything, he proclaims it good. Right? It's good. And then he stops creating and he rests. Not just recreation, though that can be very good. Not just running around to a lot of kids' sports, though sports and physical activity definitely have their place. Not just entertainment and distractions either. You know, there are actually some people that talk to me who cannot wait for the weekend to be over so they can go back to the more manageable schedule of the work week. That's nuts. Okay? Sure, it's time off, but you're not resting. You're not resting at all. And that's not the kind of rest that we're talking about here. Soul-satisfying work must be matched with soul-satisfying rest. Soul-satisfying rest refreshes the soul and the spirit, and it leaves us refreshed and equipped to return to our work. And to find that kind of rest, we need God's help. Remember last week, if you joined us, I mentioned that you need to say this prayer every day for the next 7 days. God, I need you. Remember that? God, I need you. Okay? It's also very okay to say, God, I need you to help me rest. Somewhere else in Scripture, a very wise man, David, says this, and you all know it. It comes out of Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He makes me lie down. Okay? Sheep need to be led to rest, and they have to be made to lie down. We're like that sometimes. We're like sheep. We can't always find rest on our own. We sometimes need to be led to it. We need God to lead us to rest. And it actually begins, whether you know it or not, right here on the weekend when we come to worship Him. When you make this a priority on your Sabbath, you are putting your trust in God that He will lead you to a place of rest. When your weekend begins with Mass, you are placing your trust in God that He is going to lead you to the rest that you need. For our part, as a church, our priority in putting together this weekend experience is to help you do just that, to serve that purpose, so that you can leave here encouraged and equipped and maybe even a little inspired to go back out to the rest of your life and work. So God has built us with this need to work and rest, these two things together. So let's think a little bit more about that. Maybe you're working in a job that's just a job, or a career that's not a calling, and you don't really find it soul satisfying. Now, this does not necessarily mean that you need to quit your job or change, but maybe you just need to look at what you're doing in a different light. Look at it from a different perspective. The perspective of the greater impact your work has, or the giftedness that you've got when you do that work. Maybe God is calling you to something else. Maybe that dissatisfaction is leading you into another direction. Maybe God is calling you to work for a nonprofit. Maybe God's calling you to the priesthood or to the religious life. Maybe He's calling you to work here. For some of you, this is not an issue at all, because you love your work and you appreciate how it is serving the larger purpose. And if that's you, good for you. And I mean that. Good for you. Because that's a blessing. It is a blessing that you should be thanking God for every single day. Because not everybody has that. It's an incredible blessing. Maybe you're a student and you think that all of this is way too far ahead in the future for you. Or maybe you're retired and it looks like it's so far behind you. But it's not. Take some time to prayerfully consider what your work is and what it will be moving forward. Because, and this is true, everyone of every stage and state of life, even babies, even the actively dying, have work to do. We all have work to do. On the other hand, maybe you are hearing this message right now and you realize that you need more rest because you don't have a Sabbath. Not really. And what you do have is not sustainable. Begin by asking God to help you find the rest that you need. Just simply ask God to help you find the rest you need. God, help me find the rest that I need. Knowing your needs and taking the time to meet them is not selfish. Not at all. It is living in the reality that you and I, we are children of God. He has made us needy so that eventually we will come to understand that our greatest need is for Him.